Yes, the videos that I make about C333 get a lot of views and a lot of interest, and people are very understandably fascinated in not in a morbid way, but almost like either they've seen in other people or they want to be wary of protecting themselves from it. Now, there is an infection by C333 is not like you would expect it to be. People think that I don't like the word possession because that has too much religious overtones to it, but I prefer psychic infection. Now, the infected types are usually hysterical and psychotic. They're harvesting energy on behalf of the entity inside them. But there's two types. There's one that's more insidious than the other. The one who's kind of hysterical and wired and unstable and unhinged. The entity is controlling them. The energy force is controlling them, and then there's they're not really fully in control of their behavior, hence the mass hysteria, the just obsessional behavior. And this is because they're basically under the command, like a remote control device, of this entity, this power force. Now, there are others who develop a symbiotic relationship with C333 infection to the point where they're almost in a partnership with it. Now, these types would have, by nature, a criminal or a pathological uh, personality, and everything they do is done with an agenda. There's no such thing as kindness or anything like that. Everything is manipulative. Now, this would be their natural state from the time they were children. When these are people who spend so much time on the internet that the particularly social media, that the C333 develops a feedback loop. Now, this type of individual, I will call these, what I'll call them, these would be like willing infectors, the willingly infected. These types would be have a life and a psychic behavior that's indistinguishable from what's online and what's in them. It's a continuous feedback loop of energy harvesting and manipulating people. Now, these people, because they're so given over to their, willing avatar of infection, that they then will go to anything that the entity wants. Now, what's the ultimate forms of energy harvesting? Murder. That would be the ultimate form. We're taking another life. You can see this kind of extreme level infection in serial killers. Now, there's a case that came up recently in Sheffield, in England, regarding a couple, and you could see it's a classic example of what I'm talking about. It's a male and a female who murdered two of their children and were planning to kill all six. The female, called Sarah Barras, is the should we say the willingly infected, while the husband or the partner that's with her that helped kill the kid, I'll put this link to the story below, is the one that was probably infected by her. Now, it's amazing how many of the willingly infected look so similar. Now, she has this deadness about her. I'm looking at her picture. There's the eyes are just they're not human eyes. They're just sort of like they're the entity has no further. It'll harvest from the trial. When it goes to prison, it has no further use for it, so it exits unless it can turn itself into a prison celebrity like Moira Hindley or uh, Ted Bundy. It has no further use to them. The look that you see in this picture here, that you'll see right here, is here is the look to look out for. The face has a lack of kinetic energy, because it's the body and the physiology purely exists for the purpose of serving this entity. It's like it's a C333 golem for all intents and purposes. There's a picture of her smiling, a nun arrest photo, and you see the same thing. A smile is like trying to smile. Then again, you see that same look, there's a malice in those eyes. There's a darkness there. It's just, if you look at the eyes in the happy picture, you can see it's like, what can I get from him? What can I get from her? There's a predatory element to it. Now, that she was so willingly giving over to this thing that she was posting these things on Facebook before she killed her kids, saying things, murder's like potato chips, you can't just stop at one. Now, that doesn't mean someone who posts quotes from movies and stuff like horror films and things like that, or funny memes about things like that, are infected. But in her case, it was. Because that's. This was it was the this is this meme was sent to her. I know this sounds incredible, but it was sent to her because remember there's definitely some kind of AI interface now with social media. It was sent to her to trigger her by the entity that's inside her. And then there was a picture of the Grim Reaper coming for you soon, right before she killed her kids. Now the partner that's with her and the kid that she's with, there's something not right there. The poor kids are dead, but one of them has purple hair. It reminds me of these. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about the kid. The kids were victims. Okay, that's the end of it. But a family member called Bradley Mackin, I don't know if this guy was involved with her, a friend of hers, or whatever. But he has the look of a deer caught in the headlights. Like you'd look at his face, is like, how did this happen? How did this happen? It happened because he became secondary infected through her. You see, these things they need an enabler because on their own they don't have enough personality. And what they do is or means. So she probably needed him to get the stuff to kill the kids or hold them down or poison them, whatever. She can't do it on her own. So these types they always recruit an enabler, and the enabler is almost like the public front of the primary infected one. And the enabler will the enabler just sacrifices the other one to get what it wants. This thing will leave a trail of destruction like you would not believe. In this case, two kids have been dead, and the other four have, they're probably better off in foster homes. Of course, they're better off in foster homes. It's also interesting that it happened in spring. You know what I always say about these things activate in springtime and in wintertime? May 14th to May 20th, according to the charges, the pair discussed and plotted the murders over six. So this was the pathological springtime I talk about. 10 days after that, the first devising their plot, the pair killed Tristan and Blake. Then they're basically in trouble by them, and the police are suspicious because there was an inquest into their deaths, and now they're going to be sentenced on the 12th of November. They also had the classic pity ploy big funeral, where the big emotional thing that it's it's uh, it's terrible what was done to those kids, but this is the primary thing. That face, just look at that face and see if you know someone that has that same look in their face, the same, almost like the body is falling off the entity that surrounds it. It's almost like the way you have a puppet and the puppet's on a string, and then you let the strings drop down and they're like this. That's the classic sign of C333 entity infection. Just, it's a horrible story, but deal with it. The world's not a nice place.